Hello and welcome to the first module of the Lead Research Specialist, aka LRS, for the training of Evergrowth. In the first module, we're basically going to go over the basic context of where is going to be your role in terms of the sales process, but also in the sales team, and go around the main terms that we're going to use across basically all the training, but then that you will also come across every single day when you are a lead research specialist. So let's get started. Obviously, the first step is to look at what is a typical B2B sales funnel. B2B stands for business to business, so when you sell to companies, and there is two main channels where you can get leads. Leads, it means potential prospect, potential customers. You basically have the outbound channel and the inbound channels. The main difference is that outbound means that you go out to look for customers, and inbound means that customers are coming to you. And when it comes to outbound, you cannot really automate much. Some pieces of the process are already automated, but most of it is still very manual, so that's why we can systemize it. While in inbound, you can already automate a lot. And of course, the key to start this process is basically to define an ideal customer profile. That's what ICP stands for. And this is going to be like the foundation of basically all the B2B sales funnel. Again, this is not something we invented. You can actually Google a lot about B2B sales funnel and find a lot of documentation, a lot of materials that will basically show the same funnels and explain it in probably many different ways. But at the end, it's still the same funnel everywhere. And when it comes to B2B sales, the steps are very simple. You find companies that match your ideal customer profile. Then within this company, you need to find the ideal type of contacts that are basically responsible to buy the type of services or solution that you offer. Then you contact these people, and at this stage, the main goal is not to sell anything. The main goal is really to slightly touch a pain point that is strong enough to raise their attention of the prospect of the lead and to book a meeting. Eventually, during the meeting, this is where you start discovering. So meaning I'm not selling yet, I'm just discovering if there is a pain or if there are pains, and if those pain points are basically strong enough so I can place my solution as a painkiller and then agree that there is a fit, and only then I start selling. And in inbound sales, in the best case scenario, you already have some leads, some prospect that comes to your company, and they already have a pain that match your painkiller, and then you can start, when you are done with the discovery, you can already start selling and placing your product as a painkiller. So these are the two main differences. And with Evergrowth and with the lead research specialist role, 90% of the time, most of the workload will be related to supporting the outbound sales team. Now, before to talk about the type of roles that you will be supporting, which are the SDRs and BDRs, we need to look at the other roles in the typical sales team that are very common and much more, let's say, used in different sales teams, right? So you have the account executives and customer success, and how they get leads is they get leads from the inbound team, which is most often led by the marketing department. They have organic traffic to their website. They also have paid traffic. They go to events. They do partnerships with other companies. And their main KPIs, KPI stands for key performance indicator. So that's what you are measured on to measure your performance. So their main KPIs is basically to capture new leads. So our leads are coming to the website and basically filling a form online or downloading some materials and so on and so forth. And then they need to nurture those leads. So they put them into some lists that are called queues. And those lists depends of if I download a white paper online or some kind of documents, then I'm not super warm. But if I request to have a demo, I'm a much more warmer lead. And then the type of emails that you will send me are called nurturing email. But of course, the content that I will get in these emails is different according to where I am in the funnel. So this is called lead nurturing. And the goal of those lead nurturing is to convert them to MQL, and MQL stands for marketing qualified leads. And that's when I basically book a meeting is booked with a lead that came from marketing. And that's when the account executive kicks in. And their role is really to bring new business to the company. So that's what new biz stands for. And their main KPIs is to have as many new meetings, new demos of demonstration of the product, the service, the solution to potential customers, And then, of course, the goals of those meetings and demos is to send offers, or they're also called opportunity, to open opportunities of potential offers. And of course, the goal of those offers is that they bring new customers that we call deals, and the deals are closed, right? And once the deal is closed, the customer is passed on to another department, which is called customer success. And the main KPIs of customer success is to renew the business that was brought by the account executive. And to do so, they need to make sure that the customer is successfully onboarded and that they basically continuously renew their subscription, most of the time yearly subscription, to their customers, and that the amount of revenue is either the same, or in the best case scenario, they can basically upsell their services or the solution, because the customer is either growing with their services or growing independently but needs to increase the usage of their solution. Eventually, at a later stage, when the company keeps on growing and they want to optimize their services, you have two new roles or team department that basically comes and help the sales team. You have the payment collection. Most often this role is part of the accounting department, meaning that every time the account executive gets a contract signed, and if the account executive is in charge of chasing the payments, which happens in 99% of the case, then the account executive is basically at this exact moment not bringing new business. So that's why payment collection sometimes supports the account executive. Then of course you also have at some point onboarding that support the customer success, meaning that when the customer success is too busy renewing and upselling existing account, the onboarding team helps to take over the new account brought by new business, brought from new business team from the account executive, make sure that they are onboarded, which means that they basically use all the features, all the functions of the solution, the software that they just purchased, and that they can basically leverage as much as possible the solution. And then once they are passed on to the customer success, they are already fully on board and fully able to use all the software. A new role that was basically implemented a few years ago is what we call the sales or business development representative. That's what SDRs or BDR stands for. And then main role is basically to build lists, do qualification, and then do the cold call on emails where they do the outreach basically. And to do that, they have three main KPIs, which is find new contacts, do new cold outreach, and obviously book meetings that are called SQL, sales qualified leads. And the main issue that those teams are coming across is when they need to basically book meetings, they need to find contacts, and then they need to contact those contacts. And then as soon as you are like, let's say, fully ramp up, when you're really already 3 months in the company and you have built your pipeline, you are very, very busy at following up, sending campaigns, and so on and so forth, that you really rarely have time to find new contacts. So either you spend 50% of your time doing that, or either you do 1 week where you contact, 1 week when you find contacts. But both ways, you're actually wasting a lot of times where you don't create most of the value to book meetings, but at looking for contacts. And then also, this part of the process can become very chaotic when you basically scale the team. So this is really the role and the team that the lead research specialists are supporting. And to really show the value on why this had value, we can, to the sales funnel in the big picture, we can look at the previous sales funnel from this perspective, where we have the time and the value of each on every second step. So again, the first role here of the ideal customer profile is to map the common sense of everyone working in the B2B sales funnel, to make sure that everyone is thinking the same way when it comes to ideal customer profile, when it comes to the ideal type of contacts we look in the company. Most of the time we define this profile with senior people from the sales team, very often the founder of the company, marketing department, customer success, any product people, anyone that is basically working with customers closely. And this is really important to align all the common thinking inside the companies, and then also for the lead research specialist to be able to think the same way the customer success team will think, to be able to think the same way the account executive or the SDRs will think. And of course, with this first, let's say, draft or of the ideal customer profile, or let's say the strong mapping of the ideal customer profile based on existing customers, when we do outbound, the first thing we want to do is to try to capture as much as possible of the total addressable market that we call later TAM. And how we do this is we basically build robots that are going to go and scrape the web and basically just copy paste different names of company based on some data point like company size, regions, and so on and so forth of companies that match the ideal customer profile. You can do this by web scraping, so what I just described, but you can of course buy databases as well, and so on and so forth. But the problem is that robots, they don't have common sense. So the robot will just basically put any companies that match the data point without thinking and reading if they really match the ideal customer profile. And that's where the first value of the lead research specialist is created here. Like, as a lead research specialist, what you will do is open every single company to basically check if they really match the ideal customer profile. And only then, if they match, you will enrich the leads. So enrich means that you will, of course, find contacts that basically match the ideal type of contacts that the company wants to contact to offer their painkiller, and then of course at first place touch a potential pain point. But you will also enrich some missing data points for the companies that will be used when we contact them, and so on and so forth. And the next role then can focus only on doing the outreach, booking meetings, and then of course following up on the existing pipeline that have been built, but doesn't need to worry anymore about all the lead enrichment, list building, pre-qualification, and so on. And then where all the value is really created is when all those meetings are booked, and then you follow up, you send offer, maybe potentially you have some trial, you negotiate, and so on and so forth. And then eventually you close the customer success. And this type of team are basically built on 3 roles, where you have the lead research specialist, or LRS, the SDRs or BDR, and the account executive. And the customer success is of course coming later to basically take care of the renewing the business. And what we are able to do is our, in the best case scenario, is to have a CRM process that allows you to basically update the CRM every time a lead or a company, an account is not moving down the funnel. And at some point, you will be able to basically requalify most of your total addressable market. Because let's just say that if one potential company that matched your ideal customer profile was not interested or able to buy the solution at X point of time, and that was 6 months ago, it doesn't mean that you cannot contact someone else in the same company, especially if it's a large company, to again see if there is a pain point at that time. The solution might have evolved, but then also what we can see working so much with data is that from 6 to 12% of any database is losing accuracy every month, meaning that people are just moving inside the company, but also outside the companies. The market is evolving, and so on and so forth, right? So the main goal really is not just to always push new companies, new accounts to the CRM, but also to be able to recycle. And this is where the lead research specialist also really comes in, with the process where they're able to look at what contacts were contacted in the past, go and look for new contacts that have the same type of persona but different influence in the sales process, or basically same persona, the same level that can be given again to the SDR so they can book meetings. And how we define an ideal customer profile is quite simple. We do it in 4 parts. So the first part is about the companies. And we basically have the regions, the verticals, and the size. These are the main 3 data points. So region is quite simple. It's just countries or region that are mapped together. We have industries. So for example, I don't know, like technology or retail, manufacturing, and so on and so forth, right? And then sub-industries or verticals will be basically if you target e-commerce shops, so e-commerce could be the industry, and then in e-commerce you have the travel industry, the fashion, the electronics, and so on and so forth. And then size really depends on what type of products you are offering as a company. So for example, if you sell a software that can be used for HR, number of employees is the main size criteria, because the more employees they have, the more they will be able to leverage your software. If the company is targeting e-commerce shops, number of employees doesn't really matter, because you can have an e-commerce shop that have 300 employees and one that have 3 or 4 employees, and for some reason they will have the same amount of sales. So if we look at number of employees, this is not going to be the main criteria. Alexia ranking or other type of ranking like SimilarWeb and so on are better. They basically rank website according to their traffic. SimilarWeb actually also gives you, it's another tool, gives you an estimation of the traffic. So this is a much better size criteria to rank the potential size of e-commerce web shop. If you are targeting companies that are developing apps, then the number of app downloads give you a better information of how big the user base of the apps are, and then eventually how big the demand or the pain point can be for this company. So you get the idea. On the size really depends on different criteria according to what type of solution or service the company is offering. Then the most important part, of course, is related to the enrichment, is what we call ideal contacts. And there is three types of ideal contacts. You have first the decision makers. So basically decision makers are mainly senior people or owner of the companies in smaller businesses. And their main KPIs is often oriented to the bottom line of the business, so meaning the profit and loss. And very rarely they are the one using tools every day or using software every day. They are more really in the big picture, looking at numbers and making sure that all the teams are run smoothly and generate profit for the business. Then you have the influencers that are basically the one that most of the time are using the solutions or services that you will be that the company is offering to sell basically. And the influencers managing reporting to decision makers and managing what we call the internal champions. And their main KPIs is really more on efficiencies and generating some, for example, traffic to the website or stuff like that, right? And then you have the champion that we never, when we do outbound, we never target the internal champion. For simple reasons, like the internal champion most of the time is a junior employee, or she is a junior employee in the company, and they have very little decision power or influence. And if you target champion, you can actually give a very toxic impression into the sales funnel, because it's very, very simple. Well, it's much more easier to book meetings with champions in a company than to book meetings with influencer or decision maker. The example I like to share is that whenever you start your career, you basically in a company, you are a champion, right? So you want to get in as many meetings as possible with influencer and decision makers to basically feel important. Then when you become an influencer, you want to be in as less meetings as possible, but you want to be in meetings with decision makers. And then when you are decision makers, the goal of your day is basically to be in as less meetings as possible. And if as a sales guy, as a BDRs or account executive, I contact the champion and basically tell them that, oh, I think you are important and you might have a problem related to this. Would you like to have a meeting and discuss this? Then of course they will be interested. So this is what will create a toxic impression, because then they will have very little influence in the sales funnel, and they will basically not be able to move any type of decision forwards. So for this reason, we mainly target decision makers and influencers when we build lists, when we enrich companies with ideal contacts. However, when they come as inbound, it's very, very common that who is reading your great blog post and so on your company blog is most of the time champions that again wants to have this key information to feel important in meetings. Then the product is something we also map in the ideal customer profile. So we basically categorize product into three categories. We have the painkiller, the vitamin, and the plugin. And the painkiller is basically a product that has a direct impact on the product, on the profit and loss of the company. So you can basically easily build an ROI calculator. ROI means a return on investment, where you can show like, okay, I'm going to buy this solution for 20,000 euro per year, and this solution after 6 months will generate 50,000 euro of revenue. So the ROI is super clear. So when you have a painkiller product, you can actually contact decision makers. Even though the decision makers will most likely not use your solution directly, they will basically put you in touch with the influencer. And from that moment on, you have actually authority on the influencer, because you have been introduced by a decision maker. So when we build list for painkiller product, we basically build list of decision makers. When we are building list for vitamin, so vitamin is a product that doesn't have this direct impact with ROI calculator on the profit of the company, on the more revenue, but more on how it makes basically the influencer more efficient. So for example, I have this marketing software that helps social media manager to do their workflow, like post, I don't know, some kind of updates on Facebook and Twitter, is like much faster, right? So usually it takes them, I don't know, about half a day to prepare their social media workflow and post. And with the solution that I'm offering, they can do this in a few hours. So of course, the social media traffic will later generate traffic to the website, and then those traffic will be converted into leads and then revenue. But this is more a vitamin because it's going to just make the influencer much more efficient. And this type of product is basically called a vitamin. So for that reason, we don't look and contact decision makers, but rather influencers. And most of the product out there are vitamin, and this is great. And then the tough product to basically build list on and contact is the plugin, and the plugin that basically never really generates like direct revenue for the company, and it's very difficult to prove that it's saving time for the influencer. It's just a nice to have. So for outbound, plugins are very difficult to basically sell. Most of the time, the plugins are sold at a very cheap price on a self-service type of platform. And then we always map the deal breakers. So for example, if the company cannot buy software that are hosted on the cloud or stuff like that, right? If there is a switching cost, it doesn't really matter when we build lists or when we enrich ideal contacts, but this is more like for the to have the full picture, and then for the account executive to have a checklist of what do they need to talk about when they talk with a potential contact. If you actually want to find out more information about ideal customer profile, within the slides you can have a link to a template that we created with potential ideal customer profile, and then you can also access the guidelines, which is like a few pages documents that goes through again what we have been through and how to basically build ideal customer profile yourself. So this is the end of module 1. If you want to pass to module 2, you need to go to a few questions, and hopefully I'll see you again in the module 2. Thank you for your time, and good luck with the little questions.